Governor Andy Beshear addressing the shooting early this morning in Louisville amid all the protests in that city. In case you joined us late, let me just backtrack a little bit and go over what has happened today. Sunday marked the fourth straight night of citywide protests in Louisville. Some of them have been violent there. Early this morning, LMPD and National Guard officers were called to an area to disperse a large crowd, and they had gathered at a place called Yaya's Barbecue Shack. LMPD said shots were fired at them and they returned fire, leaving the owner of that restaurant, a popular restaurant owner we're told, David McAtee, dead at the age of 53. Earlier today, Governor Beshear came out, held another news conference at 11:30 this morning, demanding answers and asking for body camera footage from those officers to be released now. Well, late this afternoon, Louisville's mayor came out and said there was no body cam footage. That's against protocol there, and the police chief was fired. The governor saying it was unacceptable for those officers not to have body cameras on, and he promises this investigation will be better than the response to the Breonna Taylor investigation, which is one of the reasons for these protests in Louisville in the first place. So obviously concerns about what will happen later tonight with protests continuing. Demonstrators have already been at the scene of last night's deadly shooting in Louisville, or early this morning. Felicia Ashley from our sister station, Wave 3 News, shows us what that scene looked like earlier today.
We are still out here on 26th and Broadway. What I want to show you is that we still have police on one side, and we have community members and family members on the other side.
When a mother loses a child, a piece of you goes along with that child.
Odessa Riley's son was shot and killed Monday morning in front of his Yaya's Barbecue Shack restaurant. Police say the National Guard and LMPD were called to 26th and Broadway to get rid of a large crowd. They claim someone shot at them and they returned fire, hitting and killing 53-year-old David McAtee, a bystander.
I just buried my baby daughter, January the 22nd. Now my baby son done got killed.
Multiple witnesses and family members said there was no need for the National Guard or LMPD to show up. They say the crowd gathers in that neighborhood every weekend, playing music, and McAtee handles the barbecue. Witnesses say soldiers boxed them in and people panicked. McAtee's nephew Marvin McAtee says people ran into his barbecue shack. Then shots went off and McAtee's niece was hit, but she's expected to be okay.
So he reached out to grab her, and at that point when he reached out to grab her, another fire went off, and then I don't know where it come from, but then they fired a real shot off, and it hit him right in the chest, and he died right there.
McAtee's family says he was well known by policemen and the community.
He fed all the police. Police would go there and talk to him and be with him, and he fed the police.
But he gave police free meals, I heard too, right?
That's what I'm talking about. He fed them free. All he was done on that barbecue corner over there, is trying to make $1 for a living.
I can't breathe! I can't breathe!
Within minutes of his death, McAtee's community rallied around his store. Their biggest question, why officers used rubber bullets in the Highlands, but real bullets in the West End. Reporting from Louisville, Felicia Ashley, 3 News.
Obviously, lots of questions still unanswered about that shooting that happened early this morning, and we'll just wait and see what the night holds for Louisville. Hopefully it will be peaceful. Undoubtedly, there will be more protests. In the midst of the unrest nationwide, tonight we do expect peaceful demonstrations across eastern Kentucky. WYMT's Will Puckett is in Paintsville, where folks will gather to stand for the black community. Will, we had to cut you off earlier, and I guess that
Steve, organizers here in Paintsville just gave about the 5-minute warning before we start to march along the streets of Paintsville. This is all put together by a former valedictorian who now goes to Yale from Paintsville High School. It is completely billed as what is planned to be a peaceful protest. We talked with Paintsville Mayor Bill Mike Runyon earlier, who said that as long as it stays peaceful, there won't be any problems.
I think the people taking part in it's going to be the big thing. As long as they behave themselves and they do the right thing and they don't try to destroy property and try to harm these downtown businesses, everything will be fine. My employees will be fine as long as they are.
Steve, Mayor Bill Mike Runyon said that Paintsville police officers, Johnson County Sheriff's Department, along with officers from the Floyd County Sheriff's Department and Kentucky State Police will all be on hand to make sure everything goes off without a hitch. Steve.
Will Puckett live in Paintsville. Thank you, Will. There are some other protests going on across the region tonight and tomorrow. We're going to have more on those at the bottom of the hour. We're going to go until 7 o'clock tonight with Mountain News. We'll air the CBS Evening News at 7 and then Issues and Answers with Secretary of State Michael Adams at 7:30 tonight. So we're doing things a little bit different because of the governor's news conference earlier. Now, people in Lexington are also coming together to protest as well. People were seen expressing frustration over the weekend, but doing it peacefully there. Andrea Walker has more.
There's been no shortage of violence following the deaths of unarmed Black Americans.
We stand for the ones who's been knocked down, the ones who can't stand up no more because they don't have a voice anymore.
But in stark contrast to scenes like this, the city of Lexington proved that protests can be both powerful and peaceful.
We're just here to sit back, to listen, to give people a platform who really genuinely need it.
Instead of looking at one another as adversaries, activists and officers started forging the bonds of friendship. In place of chants, cheers rang out over a few lighthearted games of rock, paper, scissors.
It's not just my voice that matters. It's all of our voices that matter.
Instead of stare downs, the two groups embraced, an act put into perspective by the pandemic.
There's a lot of us that want to change, and we're going to do what it takes to get there.
Of course, the most precious gifts often come in small packages, or in this case, small gestures. Protesters and police seen here shaking hands while defending their respective beliefs, their rights, and their communities. In Lexington, Andrea Walker, WKYT.
Lexington police say there were no arrests and no injuries during protests there over the weekend. The 2020 Kentucky High School Teacher of the Year was arrested this weekend. The Courier-Journal reports Matt Kaufman was protesting the death of Breonna Taylor in downtown Louisville. Kaufman teaches in Jefferson County Public Schools and faces an unspecified misdemeanor charge. Police arrested at least 40 people during Sunday's protests in Louisville.
Well, it was a beautiful day here in the mountains. Very comfortable temperatures and plenty of sunshine. We're going to take you up to those cameras to show you just how gorgeous it's been throughout the day as we look along I-64 in Moorhead. Few high clouds here and there, but other than that, it's just been a very nice and calm day here in the mountains. As we look over into Whitesburg, you can see those beautiful blue skies over there as well. 78 degrees right now, really not a cloud in the sky and feeling like 78 degrees. A lot of us anywhere from the low to mid to upper 70s. You can see closer to 80 down to Monticello, 81 in Jonesville, so pretty comfortable out there. If you do head out, just make sure you have that sunscreen on. That UV index still very high tonight and as we head into the rest of the week, so it doesn't feel that warm, but you could burn pretty quickly if you are going to be outside this afternoon. We will continue to see plenty of sunshine, but we'll start to warm up heading into the rest of that work week. We will bring back some scattered rain chances, but not until a little bit later. I'll have a look at that full 7-day forecast coming up in a little bit.
All right, thank you very much, Paige. President Trump is taking new steps to handle protests across the nation, some happening just yards away from his front door. Graffiti on the Lincoln Memorial and glass on the sidewalk show just some of the damage from violent protests overnight in D.C. The demonstrations at the nation's capital were peaceful throughout the day, but some began looting and damaging buildings after the sun went down.
All of us need to work to make sure that we stop destruction, but we are focused on what we need to do to change our country.
There was also a fire in the basement of the historic St. John's Church near Lafayette Square across from the White House. Every president since James Madison has attended a service there. We're also hearing the president may make some sort of statement from the Rose Garden this evening if it hasn't happened already. We'll, of course, monitor that and bring you any major developments. Again, we'll air the CBS Evening News coming up at 7 o'clock tonight with all the latest from around the country. Protests around the U.S. over police brutality are raising fears those mass gatherings could lead to a new outbreak of the coronavirus. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced the number of positive cases in that state has dropped to less than 1,000, the lowest level since the outbreak began. But as thousands of protesters marched through the streets of New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio is warning of a potential second wave of cases.
For those who have made their presence felt, made their voices heard, the safest thing from this point is to stay home, obviously, because we don't want people in close proximity to each other.
Dental offices in New York State were allowed to begin treating patients again today as long as they practice social distancing. Non-essential construction and pickup orders at retailers can resume next week there. Coming up on Mountain News at 6, if you are one to always hunt for a bargain, we have some tips for you on how to find the best deal.
And we'll see more sunshine heading throughout the next few days, but temperatures will be on the warmer side. I'll have those details coming up.